Hello class and welcome back. We have a lot to unpack. This week we covered the senses. So for your learning tips and tricks and mnemonics, we have a ton of them and we broke this up into a few videos. By the way, the art here had a little fun with world map combining with the senses. Hope you enjoyed that one. Hope you enjoy my quite dry humor here. Let's get into it here. We all have five senses, right? If you've seen the monkey, right? See no evil, hear no evil. Speaking, that's not a sense. That doesn't count. I like the smell no evil. That's a pretty good one. This is a funny one, too, that I came across. Guess the sense, right? Well, we all have five senses, unless you're Spider-Man and maybe you have a sixth sense there. Or perhaps a seventh sense, right? The sense of humor. And if anyone gets this meme here, right, if you have dark humor and you touch your sense of humor, haha, get it? Okay, coming back to our five senses, which one is considered the most important sense to have? This is universally considered vision in terms of your five senses. Of course, some friendly neighborhood folks may disagree with you on that one. Which has the most receptors, by far that is going to be touch, your hand especially. Which sense is the most complex? Well, it's actually a new one. I think we're up to 8 senses now. Interoception, it's that complex sensation that incorporates a lot of internal senses. So fun little fact there that you can quiz your friends on. Which one requires the most learning and takes the longest for your body to develop and mature? That one, we're going back to the first one there, vision, which is what we are going to cover. We covered a lot in lecture about vision, and on these videos a lot of the learning and a lot of the focus is also on one single sense, and the other ones kind of get grouped. So let's do a little fun thing. We did this in lecture, but I would focus on here. Just stare at that star, don't look anywhere else, and then when we turn away, what did you get? Did anyone get red, white, and blue? I hope you did. Same fun thing here. Who do you see, the younger woman or the older woman? This one, if you go quickly, you can probably recognize about 4 animals, right? Elephant, donkey, dog, cat. Maybe you saw the mouse there. There's actually quite a bit more. I encourage you to pause it and go back and try to find out all the different animals you can see. This one's a cool one. These are all fun little pictures and memes to check on your vision and optical illusion. This one gets a little creepy. This was a fun one. The perhaps first known optical illusion. This body clearly looks much more like a buffalo than a mammoth. That's just the shape of a buffalo, but that makes it obviously look more like a mammoth. So perhaps the first known optical illusion. So what are we going to review in this talk? Well, a bunch of mnemonics and how to identify similarities and differences in a lot of structures of the eye, conjunctiva, cornea, sclera, things like rods versus cones. In the next video, we're going to cover more, so hope you get a lot out of this. Here we go. So, quick review, right? We covered this pretty quickly in lecture back to back here. Conjunctiva is that lining. It's almost like parietal and visceral pleura. There's a lining right here for palpebral, and then a lining right here for bulbar conjunctiva, extending over the sclera, which is the whites of your eyes, and then in the front continues on, you have the clear cornea. Another drawing here in terms of the differences between each of these layers. How do we differentiate and retain these facts when we're trying to label a structure or describe it if you're on the wards or in an ophtho rotation? Conjunctiva, that's the layer of tissue inside right there reflecting back on the sclera like I was talking about. It seems like pleura to me. Sclera is that white layer right there, thick and opaque. It does have blood vessels though, so even though it's white, it actually is vascular. And if you've ever had a rough night, you can get some vascularity in your sclera. So how can we remember this a little better? Well, cornea, transparent, avascular, no blood supply. And when you think about that, it's kind of scary if you wear your contacts too long. In the normal situation, oxygen diffuses from the air or it gets dissolved in your tears and that coats along your eyes, and that's how your cornea gets oxygenation. If you have, well, dry eye disease, keratoconjunctivitis sicca, or just wearing contact lenses too long, you can actually get some big-time problems. And the sclera tries to up its blood supply, and you get more vascularity in your eyes because your poor cornea is suffering. So hopefully that helps you differentiate cornea versus sclera. So again, sclera is white, but it is vascular. Cornea is clear. It is avascular. And fun medical fact on that, you can get a cornea transplant and not have to worry about immunosuppressants because there's no immune cells. There's no vascularity. Your body can't send a bunch of white cells and attack a foreign, well, body part, in this case, a cornea transplant. So you can have no problem getting a cornea transplant. Neat little fun fact that you can learn from anatomy. That's why anatomy is power. We love it. This is kind of a weird mnemonic, but if you think of your conjunctiva and sclera and cornea as a human inherent contact lens made from your own body, a CSC layered lens. Conjunctiva is the outer cover for C. The sclera is the thick, strong, I guess that works for S, support structure. And then the cornea is clear and right in the center. So those letters do kind of work. Conjunctiva cover, sclera strong and supporting, cornea clear and central. Another one, you think of the window, the wall versus the wallpaper. Cornea is the window, right? Clear in the middle, avascular, no blood vessels. Sclera is the wall, the thick support, giving you vascularity and nutrition is your supportive structure. And your conjunctiva is lining that wall, the wallpaper, that very thin, foldable, you're not seeing the other half drawn kind of weird here, but that's your conjunctiva on top of your sclera. So hopefully you like those mnemonics. If you have better ones, please let me know. Put them in the comments. We want to spread the word to our other students so we can all learn and remember this material. Let's move on to retina versus fovea versus macula. So those layers that were in the front of the eye, conjunctiva, sclera, cornea right here, can be confusing. Now we have three that are in the back of the eye. Retina, most people understand that. It's where all your rods and cones are in terms of getting a spectrum of vision throughout peripheral and central. The macula is dead center in the middle, as illustrated right here, which contributes to central vision. And then the fovea is within the macula, and it has a ton of rods and cones, really cones, not rods, and minimal blood vessels. They just crowd out the blood vessels. That's where your real focused, fine detail central vision is, such as text and facial recognitions and identifying fine details between specific shades of a color. This is looks like an angiography if you inject dye and you can see the blood vessels. This is a similar version of that called an optical coherence tomography with angiography. It doesn't actually use dye, but it uses a kind of a trick with radiology to detect motion and highlight the blood vessels. So white is all where blood is flowing, and obviously right here, a nice collection of blood vessels spanning out. But all this grayish and whitish in between is where blood is flowing. Where there's black is absence of at least measurable blood flow on this. So here's your optic disc where your optic nerve is, and the main nerves that supply your eye branch out. But as you start getting closer and closer and closer, it starts getting darker. This is your macula, and as you start to get closer and closer and closer right into the middle, that dead center is your fovea. No blood flow. Blood does flow there, but it comes from diffusion, just slowly spreading across microscopically in between rods and cones and whatnot, but no big conduit of a blood vessel here. Let's talk about the cones a little more. I moved my face to get out of the way so you can see the cones and rods. Little triangular shaped, well, kind of looks like a cone right there as opposed to the rod, which looks like, well, a rod. More cones are in the center, and even more are in the macula, and the most in the fovea. This is where, what we talked about before, we get color interpretation here. They are not very sensitive. You need a ton of light to activate your cones. You really have one cone per a bipolar cell and a ganglia. So you need a ton of light to activate that individual cone. So you can akin it to like your DSLR camera. You need a lot of bright light to get in there to get your picture taken, or that one. Can imagine that, taking a picture of that in the dark, you're just not going to get a good picture. This is what I was talking about before. Each cone connected to a bipolar neuron and then a ganglion to transmit the impulse You need a lot of light, but you get plenty of detail and resolution, just like this camera here. Let's contrast that to the rods. You have more rods in total spread out evenly throughout the retina and more on the outsides, less in the macula or fovea. More important for your peripheral vision. This does not detect colors. This is like your night vision goggles. I thought that was a pretty hilarious photo there. Much more sensitive to dimmer light, and you get a grayscale in actual night vision goggles. It's green, but just imagine it as gray. This, you have a whole array of rods connected to one ganglion and bipolar neuron demonstrated right here. There we go. You have a whole array of rods here that connect to a bipolar cell, and therefore you can detect a lot dimmer light. One little scatter of light might come in and activate one rod, for example, right there, and that'll get picked up and activate this neuron. So it's much lower sensitivity, but you don't quite know where it's coming from since it's just this big blast. It's like cupping your ears and holding it out. You're bringing in more sound, but you can't quite fine-tune where that sound is coming from. You generally know it's right versus left. That's how the rods work. A lot of sensitivity because you have so many rods that can trigger one bipolar neuron and ganglion cell, but it's hard to localize. So you just kind of get the basics, and that's what your periphery is all about. You can kind of tell something's there, but you can't hone in on it. In terms of our fun medical facts that we like, because it helps us remember, this is the fun little color test. The cones can fatigue very easily. As you keep blasting your cones with certain colors, yellow and blue in this situation of the flag, they just stop firing. And then when you shut them off, you get the opposite effect because the green and the yellow and the black get tired, and then the opposite colors are the only ones that still fire. So once you remove that stimulus in the image, all you get is the red, white, and blue, which is a pretty fun little test. You can do that right now. Oh, hang on. Can't back it up, but you can pause it and back up and see if that worked for you. If you're outside in the sun and you got a lot of bright white, the white ones fatigue. So when you step inside, the dark ones are the only ones that are left, and you get that dark spot. All right, mnemonics. Tried here. The C's and the R's. Maybe this works for you for cones and rods. Cones are color, right, in the center of your eye, and for clarity, fine detail, right, your fovea. The rods are kind of that rough outline and really dim light. And I had trouble with the peripheral, but think center, big city, and then the rural is on the edge and the periphery. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. If you have better mnemonics, please let me know. But I think I liked the C's and the R's. That works pretty well for me. Another way to think about it conceptually, your analogy, cones want the spotlight, whereas the rods work kind of in the backstage on the outside, the low light, the shadows. These are your stage hands, whereas the cones are the actors right in the spotlight in the center. And for the chart table lovers out there, I love to do this and kind of wrote this down as a DIY on my own, and I encourage you to do that. This is another way to kind of help you differentiate rods and cones. All right, we're going to do a little fun test here. Don't look on the left side of the screen, but I'm going to show an image there. Just focus in right on the center. Where's my pointer? Right here. And don't look away. Keep looking at the center, and I'm going to bring, you know something's happening on the left, but once I bring that same structure into the middle, at some point you go, get it, it's a dude. And he goes across to the right. But if you're looking at the center, it's kind of hard on the right and left side to see if it's a little stick figure and which hand is raised, because those are your rods. Same thing here, stare at the dude. There's going to be an object coming from the top, but don't look at the top, stare at the guy in the middle. And eventually you're going to be able to figure out, okay, that's a letter, and it's the letter R, and oh yeah, it's yellow and green. This is a fun time to test your color vision, because some people have trouble with that R, the red and the yellow and green. I actually have a little trouble with that bottom middle one there. It's blues and purples, and it's a number 5. But if you cannot see the numbers inside these colors, you have one version of color blindness, which is more common than you think. I have a relative who has one of these. He has some troubles with reds, purples, and pinks. There are many different kinds, and this is what it would look like, quote unquote, normal vision. If you can see all the different colors right there, that's what it appears to you. But if you have one of the versions of colorblind, for example, the one on the bottom right, you can't really see the greens and yellows very much. Those disappear. So what you're left with is reds and blues. A mnemonic, again, using the letters. I think this works, right? The retina makes us focus, RMF. Retina receives the full image, right? The entire film. The macula is that middle spot, and the fovea is the finest of the fine. Another way to think about that, right? You read with your fovea, but you see the whole book with your retina, right? You focus right in on the words in the middle of the screen. Fovea handles the high vision detail, like that tiny text that I was a little mean to put in there. But the retina captures the, well, overall broader scene. Here's another picture there. Peripheral vision helps you prevent, right, a deer that comes onto the road. You can stop the car in time, but the central vision is what you focus on when you look all the way down to the very end of the road. That's your macula and your fovea at work. Another one, right, when you're doing darts, throwing darts, the retina, well, the entire dartboard there. The macula is the triples, that inner circle in the middle there that you're trying to hit, and the fovea would be the bullseye. That's another way to think about it. Finally, I know I'm kind of running out of analogies here, but if you're at the IMAX, the whole big screen is the retina. The macula is if you have the lucky seat and you're right in the center of the theater and you're able to focus crisply. And then the fovea is that absolute 1080p HD ultra high def 4K pixels right in the center. In fact, there's 8K now. I even heard there's 16K available, not to the general public, but they are making that now, at least at the recording of this video. That's probably going to be in our homes soon. So I think, so what happens when your blood vessels stop working well, or you get disease to your blood vessels? You don't get enough blood supply, your body wants to grow more blood vessels, and it starts to invade your macular region, and you get this overgrowth. That is what macular degeneration is. This is terrible. Quite literally, physically and anatomically, as blood vessels grow in, trying their best to supply your retina with blood, they start damaging and twisting and warping the positioning of your rods and cones, and things start to get a little distorted because you want nice compact collection of cones, not as much rods. But if blood vessels go in there, it's going to affect your vision. Interestingly, it's going to affect your central vision, not your peripheral vision. So these are the people that can walk around just fine, not bump into things. But if you show them something, put a phone or a book in front of them, they can't read something that's right in front of them. But their peripheral vision is fine. This is just, seems so terrible to have this. I mean, this, please protect your vision, everyone. This is what it would appear like, a gray spot in the middle of the field. You can't really detect a face in front of you. This is what the visual field graphically would appear like. The image gets distorted and twisted because quite literally your rods and cones are getting pushed and shoved out of the way as blood vessels are growing in. Your baseline would be here, and this is a warped image. FYI, this is not the blind spot, so to speak. Your optic disc, which is where your optic nerve and the blood vessels come in, does not contain rods and cones normally. So at baseline, we all have a tiny little blind spot in our visual field. That's this picture of the back of the retina. Right here, there are no rods and cones. So if you ever get a real in-depth ophthalmologic exam, there is a tiny little blind spot there. This is not that. This is where the macula, unfortunately, gets too many blood vessels, and it basically looks like you got another optic disc sitting right here where there's all this ingrowth of blood vessels. It doesn't exactly look like that, but blood vessels fill in that gap, that black hole from the tomography angiography from earlier. Not a good thing. Please protect your eyes, and I'll see you in the next video. We're going to cover these topics next.